Since 2004, there's been no team in the NFC East to win the division consecutive years in a row. Does this mean bad news for Dallas, or will this trend finally change? It is a beautiful week for some NFL football, ain't it? Welcome back, or welcome to America's Sports. If you're not new here, then you already know the drill. But if you are new, then we want you to comment first through fourth place in the NFC East. The only thing is I've kind of run out of time before the NFL season starts, so this video will not be as long as the other ones, but it'll still be pretty informative. Let's go. As usual, we start with the team that finished last, and that was the Washington Commanders in 2023. They were 4-13, and they did not win a division game. This year, to win the division, they range pretty widely, depending on where you look, from plus 800 all the way to plus 1200. They opened with the worst odds, but now have the third best odds, with their over-under for wins sitting at 6.5. Okay, Washington, we start off with, there is a lot of change here, so we got to go over the additions and subtractions. And for this defense that wasn't very good last year, it's a tragedy if they lose anyone on defense, but they did lose their best linebacker in Cody Barton. Cornerback Kendall Fuller has been on the team in the entire 2020s era, but he is now on to Miami, which really sucks because they only had 8 interceptions last year, and those two guys were 3 of them. In fact, this team was the worst in the turnover ratio. On offense, quarterback Sam Howell, quarterback Jacoby Brissett, and running back Antonio Gibson are all gone. Wide receivers Curtis Samuel and Jahan Dotson are also gone from the team. They were second and third in receiving yards last year. Numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5 in receiving yards for Washington are all gone. Another thing that was brutally bad about Washington is how many times Sam Howell got sacked. It was 65 times, which was the most in the NFL. He also threw just as many interceptions as he had passing touchdowns. And yeah, I definitely think Daniels is a better quarterback, but it doesn't mean much if you're going to be sacked all the time. Who I really like, and I do like that Washington at least tried to do something in free agency with the offensive line, but it bugs me that they didn't draft much of an offensive line. They had 9 picks and only 1 offensive lineman. I don't know, man. That just kind of boggles my brain. However, 6 of those 9 picks were all in the first 3 rounds, so this is good news regardless. They brought in guys like Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler, and they drafted Luke McCaffrey to fill in those gaps for the receiving yards lost. They also nabbed Noah Brown from the Houston Texans, which I think is a sneaky good move. But it doesn't really matter who's your quarterback if your offensive line is that bad and your defense is going to also be that bad. You're not going to go very far. PFF ranks this offensive line the 27th best, and they give the defensive line the 19th best. To me, I don't know how they can't be at least 32 until they're proven that they can be trusted. With that said, I do think they improve. I do think they are better than last year because they kind of have to be better than last year. The bar's not raised that high. Washington is the team that I really want to like, though. I love the stories from there. I'm interested, and I've always been a big Eckler fan at the same time. And Scary Terry, and I like Jaden Daniels, so I kind of want it to work. I'm going to give them a 7-10 record, and I'm going to put them 3rd in the NFC East. Placing 3rd were those New York Football Giants. They were 6-11 overall, but played the division well at 3-3. However, to win the division this year, their odds are long, and it ranges from plus 1,200 all the way up to plus 2,000. Their over-under for wins is sitting at 6.5, though, same as Washington's. The Giants were on Hard Knocks at the very start of this year, basically, and I gotta be completely honest, I wasn't super impressed with the offense. Danny Jones, missed time last year. The year before that, he was in the playoffs and won a playoff game. The Giants lost 2 of their best players and definitely their most popular player at that. So you not only lose Saquon, but you lose him to the damn Eagles. That's rough. Number 2 in receiving yards, tight end Darren Waller also retires. Luckily, with their first-round pick, though, they drafted wide receiver Malik Nabers, who is going to be really the best offensive weapon they have. PFF gives the offensive line a number 29 rank, and they give the defensive line a number 18 rank. Just like with Washington, and actually even worse than Washington, they didn't draft anyone in the offensive line. Now, I know there's a lot of different problems. There's a lot of things that they need to get. But I just don't see a valid reason for not getting at least one lineman. I'm a big fan of Dexter Lawrence, and I think Thibodeau could end up being really good. He's good, but I think he has potential to be really good. And then adding Brian Burns helps the defense. So I'm in on this defensive line. But I'm going to be honest with you, Giants fans, in the same way that I was last season. I just can't and I won't buy into this team being good this year. Saquon was a huge part of the offense, and that's going to be an adjustment period on an offensive line that isn't good. There are a lot of Giants fans, so I know you guys are going to be pissed off at me. And I get it. That's what being a fan is. This is not intentionally to trash the Giants. I just think there's a lot of work to do. That doesn't mean that good things can't come out of it, though. And yeah, Danny Jones hasn't had a lot of weapons. The one weapon they tried to bring in retired on them. And then a couple years before that, for whatever reason, Kenny Golladay didn't work out for them either. So I've got them with 5 wins. I got them at 5-12, and I got them with a 1-5 division record. I honestly don't think they're beating Dallas or Philly. I think that they can get Washington one time at home, and they might beat them on the road too. They did sweep them last year, but I don't see a sweep 2 years in a row. Placing second in 2023 was the Philadelphia Eagles. They were 11-6 overall with a 4-2 division record. This year, they are the odds-on favorite to win the NFC East, ranging from -125 to -150. Their over-under for wins this year is set at 10.5. The Eagles are in an interesting position because they did not win the division last year, and all the history in the world tells us that nobody wins this division 2 years in a row. They were on the road to taking the division last year, and they might have been the first ones to do it last year, and then things just kind of fell apart for them. They do lose Hassan Reddick, but they bring in Bryce Huff. The Eagles were able to bring in the likes of Saquon Barkley and Jahan Dotson. The interesting thing here is both of them came from teams in the same damn division as them. They drafted who I thought they were going to draft, and they've got some depth in the secondary. The defensive line is still stout. The depth is still really good, which now that just gives them depth at everything, really. You know, maybe besides tight end, if Goddard gets hurt, then they'll lose out at tight end there, but a full healthy team of Philadelphia is very, very scary. On the offensive line, Jason Kelce retired, but it's still rated number 2 according to PFF, while the defensive line is rated number 3. This is the best combo, tied with the Detroit Lions for offensive and defensive line, at least according to PFF, for whatever that's worth. But Cam Jurgens is going to be the big question mark here, as he is now replacing Kelce at center. However, I think he's going to do fine. Pairing up Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley in the backfield is nightmare fuel for anyone that has to go against them, but add in a great offensive line, a top 10 tight end, and also one of the better wide receiver rooms. Yeah, the team is scary, and that's just on offense. Saquon's never ran with an offensive line this good. The schedule starts off with 4 NFC opponents right away, but the first 2 are at home. Either way, they will be tested. They're playing 3 teams from the NFC South, and none of them is named Carolina. When it comes to the division, I believe they will be very good. I'm giving the Eagles an 11-6 record, but I think it could definitely be 12-5. And I've got them going 5-1 in the division, winning the division yet again. Last but not least, actually the winner of the division last year was the 12-5 Dallas Cowboys, who were 5-1 in the division. This year, they have the second best odds to win the NFC East, ranging from plus 170 to 175. They did open as the favorites, though, so that's interesting to note. Their over-under for wins is set at 9.5. So, because you just watched what I said about Philly, that means you already know I put Dallas in second place. They were one of the best teams in not giving the ball away on offense, and I think that will continue. Tony Pollard is out, but Ezekiel Elliott is back in. That move is kind of questionable to me. And I think it's pretty safe to say that Zeke's not going to be the exact same as he was for Dallas. But Brandon Cooks quietly had 8 receiving touchdowns for the team last year, and I think Jake Ferguson will have even more work as well. On the defensive side of the ball, Dallas has been pretty good at turning you over, especially when it comes to picking you off. Stephon Gilmore is no longer on the team. Gilmore has now been on 5 teams in 5 different years. But now, They'll get Diggs back in that secondary. It's possible they could cause even more interceptions. Last year, they held teams to under 19 points per game. This was top 5. So it's still a very good football team. PFF gives the offensive line the 10th best rating, and they give the defensive line a number 6 rating, which actually means that the Dallas offensive line, for the first time in a while, actually got a lot worse, as they lost 2 starters, but the offensive line is still going to be really good. Therefore, I'm all over the over 9.5 wins for Dallas, and I'm going to give them a 10-7 record with a 4-2 division record. Shout out to you, dude, for making it to the end of this video. Do yourself a favor and me a favor and subscribe to this channel. We're all about ball over here. Stay one step ahead of your friends at the fantasy football league you're in. Stay a step ahead of your family at the Thanksgiving Day dinner. And a step ahead of your coworkers at the water cooler. But that's it for this video. You'll catch me in the next one.